3 tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Kanell. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 tailgate, where Hockey Wizards got a question. Will y'all be watching USA versus Canada tonight? Any predictions?
Yes, I will be watching.
Heck yeah, I'll be watching. This is I just saw the viral clips of the first game and throwing the gloves down as soon as the puck dropped, fired up for that. I will say, you guys know Boney, one of our producers. I was talking to him and Pete Prisco, who are much more dialed in. In fact, Boney was wearing a Team USA hockey sweater.
There you go.
Sweater, right? Not a jersey. And I said, I'm going to load up on Team USA. And both of them were like, you might be careful. And I was like, it's in Boston. They won one. Like, they've got to win this one. They thought Canada's roster was better. So I'm a little bit like, I might not go all in. You have to back the U.S. So I might have a smaller bet.
Canada's roster is better, but it was better in the first game too. And
I was trying to matter.
Yeah,
Go
ahead, Tom.
I think the U.S. has lost some guys to injuries that won't be able to play tonight, and I think that's going to be a key factor. But I don't care because it's in Boston, it's America, it's hockey, it's our national sport. We're gonna take it down.
Look, the injuries are like very significant, and you also have the fact that Canada, you might have woken up the beast a little bit with the first win. Like maybe they were taking it a little lightly, and then they're going to be coming back and playing with a little bit more edge. I'll tell you what my prediction is: over.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the total at?
Is it probably going to be 6.5 usually?
Oh, then I would be way under.
5.5. That was against Pete and Boney. Both said take the under. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm on the under. If it's
so they're saying it'll be lower scoring. Like Canada gets up and then just packs it in.
No, it's like these kind of matchups tend to be lower scoring. It's a lot on the line. It's going to be lots of defending. People are going to be giving max effort.
Bud, predictions? Hockey expert?
I actually played a little hockey growing up, but like roller hockey, not ice hockey much. I think a little higher scoring actually.
Okay. All right. Or you could wait till it goes live, and then maybe if like Connor McDavid puts one in the back of the net early, get a little like a +1.5.
I would say the higher scoring it is, the worse news that probably is for the U.S. Because I don't think the U.S. team has the kind of offensive firepower to match what Canada has.
That's fair. I would say that as well. But yeah, of course we're throwing it down on the United States. Come on. Absolutely. Also from the tailgate, this was a little bit more current event related. Coach K33 jumped into tailgate almost 2 hours before we got started and said the SEC is the stealing enjoyment conference. Can we please allow court storming and field storming again? Missouri's basketball coach having to tell people not to rush the floor is lame after beating the number 4 team. They didn't just beat the number 4 team. They scored more points than Missouri has ever scored in an SEC basketball game, hung 110 on them. And Dennis Gates did grab the PA with 1.5 seconds left and ask the fans not to storm. Is Missouri broke? Or is he trying to say we're too good for that?
If it was a buzzer beater, I'm okay with it. Missouri's ranked 15th though. Like they're a top 15 program. I think it's got to be like you knock off the number 1 team. I think it's got to be more significant. They had just lost to Auburn. Maybe if they had beat Auburn and leapfrogged them and were number 1, I get it. But I didn't think it was storm the court worthy.
You know where they don't storm the court? Cameron. Like they don't storm the court at Rupp. Like it's.
When was the last time Missouri beat a top 5 team at home?
Did you see it on the score line? Or on the
no, I'm just asking. It's been a while, hadn't it?
Yeah.
Storm the court. I know Gary Parrish is probably stripping naked, covering himself in baby oil, celebrating that they're not storming the court because somebody's going to get hurt. But
the thing that is interesting about this is the fines do carry over sports. Is it Vanderbilt that's up to 500,000 already because they did it
basketball and football?
Yep.
Yeah, like they combine them, so it can get up there pretty quickly to $500,000, and that money's probably better served going to players than your kids getting the viral opportunity to take a picture in front of somebody.
Vanderbilt not broke. Missouri question. It's out there.
Court storming's the #1 killer of young Americans.
I think that did it seem if it's a buzzer beater, if it's thrilling, but Missouri had that game controlled the whole way.
That's why I think, and he was ahead of it. I mean, he had time to tell them don't storm.
Yeah,
the condolences to me because I took the live under for the second half in that game, thinking there's no way they're going to score that many points again in the second half.
198 was the bet.
And they went way over it.
Way even over that. Absolutely banana stuff. All right. This is a Thursday. We are getting interactive here. That means questions from the tailgate. We got a bunch there. We've got some from the big old bag of mail. We've left us a 5-star review, and in that review, put a mailbag question. This one is actually from yesterday's chat, so I'll just go ahead and read it verbatim. Given the state of college football, and this was after the assistant coaching carousel, Wednesday's show, given the current state of college football, is it fair to say a majority of college football assistants are going to jump to the NFL given the opportunity?
Given the opportunity. I think it's probably like a little bit nicer to be in the NFL. However, I would say, is the money the same? If it is, then yeah, you probably go. I think there is a case to be made, though, that like coordinators, may want to stay because like there are certain guys now that don't really have to like recruit, and that's kind of a little more cush. I mean, if you just want to call plays, it's like I don't think Chip Kelly had to do a whole lot of recruiting this last year.
Yeah, the opportunity part is what's not a lot of guys are getting offered NFL gigs. I think that some will, some won't, and I also think that we're not that far away from the fact that these kids will all be employees anyway. So they're going to have contracts, and the transfer portal and all that kind of stuff will not be as much of a headache. And the load that's currently on college coaches and assistants will ease up. Not in the next couple of years, but in the next decade or so, you're going to see that load ease up quite a bit.
I think the lines have been blurred more than ever before, where a lot of it might come down to personal preference. The money is pretty much level playing field. With what you can make in college.
Like if you're a coordinator versus a coordinator, we're kind of at that level right now.
I think so. I don't think there's that much difference. And with the players themselves, I mean, Tom just alluded to it. They're already making money. It used to be, college players were hungrier, the love of the game, the passion for the sport was clearly a little bit more the emphasis. But now that players are getting paid, it's just, I don't think there's that much difference in mentality. So maybe it's, lifestyle. Do you want to live in a bigger city? I do think recruiting still is impacted somewhat. I do think that's something that a lot of coaches maybe prefer not to do. It's a little bit better quality life in the NFL, but all things considered, it's not that much different.
Is it a better quality of life
in the NFL?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Because there is the there is the like you spend all your time playing. The coaches are going to be.
Yeah, but there's an off season.
Okay.
Like if you're a tight ends coach, you get the off season. It's like you have to show up to like voluntary training camp and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like you're not working, but you're not traveling all over the country, going to high schools and glad handing and dealing with coaches and trying to convince these kids to come to your school.
I will say this is why it's kind of worth watching some of the proposed calendar changes, right? Like if recruiting becomes more transactional and we're doing more like, hey, you come to us if you really want to see us. We don't need to go see you to like talk to your guidance counselor and all that kind of stuff anymore, right? Like as we get further away from pretending this is about academics at most schools, because it's really not. Like, if you're not having to recruit off campus as much, yeah, NFL coaches don't have to deal with players coming there like, hey, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Let me show you around a little bit. Because I bet you, like, even Chip Kelly probably had to meet with guys when they came on campus. I don't know that he did a ton of off-campus recruiting. I actually know that he did some, because I know some of the coaches who met with him at their high schools. But if you reduce the number of days that coaches are actually allowed to be on the road, then these kind of hard driving head coaches won't, like, they literally by rule can't force their guys to recruit off campus as much anymore. And that probably brings it a little bit closer to the NFL, I guess.
The reason why I grabbed it was the question said, given the current state of college football,
right.
And that stuck out to me because I was like, the current state of college football to me is making the job of the assistant coach in college more manageable, not necessarily. And then the
more
other
than it was, certainly.
Yeah. And then the other part about given the opportunity is there's only but so many jobs of this in all of football. That if you go out to be a football coach and somebody's giving you the opportunity to come to the National Football League and, like you go get to be at the pinnacle of the sport, then yeah, like of course you're going to be entertaining that and you're going to be considering that. But I was thinking that the question is implying that being an assistant at the college level is getting worse, I thought, but to me, it's getting better moving ahead into the future.
Yeah, it's definitely getting better.
Okay.
Definitely getting better. Definitely getting more transactional. I mean, do you guys see Deion's latest comments for the second year in a row? He's like, I'm not getting on a plane. He's like, I'm not going out to see anybody. And you think he's able to get more? Yeah. You think Warren Sapp and Marshall Faulk are going to sign up for a job where they have to schlep it around? I mean, I'm sure they're like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Bring them all to Boulder. They'll come see us. And I also think his approach where he goes more into the portal, like he's not as much into the high school recruiting. He's into the portal. If that's your approach, those portal players are more than likely coming to you. Like you're not going into there, talk to their moms and dads. You're just trying to talk to the player and getting him to come. I mean, they're adults now.
They're 19.
So I think that's completely changed.
To your point about like by rule, how many hours can a guy work you? Can he send you off campus? Here's Warren Sapp on, I don't know where he said this, but the quote is on the Colorado Buffaloes Sports Illustrated site. Quote, I asked for the same job that Deion gave me, senior quality control analyst, Sapp said. I asked for the same job at the University of Miami a little bit before I went to Colorado, right before Jason Taylor showed up, because Taylor coaches for the Hurricanes now. The biggest roadblock, a staggering workload. A certain person told me he wanted his analyst to work 20 hours a day, Sapp explained. So I need sleep and at least a meal. I get more than 4 hours sleep, which, I mean, that kind of tracks that Cristobal works his guys really hard. They're paid well, and he really demands a lot of them when it comes to recruiting, because you're certainly not analyzing stuff and coaching stuff for 20 hours a day. Like that's a recruiting.
Well, you got to work on your mustache. You got to put the wax on the big mustache. Right?
Oh, right. That facts. So yeah,
I don't know which it takes to do that to your mustache.
Do you know him, Bud? I forgot his name. Is it Ryan?
It's Aaron Feld. I don't know him personally.
If for those of you at home, he was with him he was with Cristobal at Oregon. He's with him at Miami. It is one of the most distinctive mustaches of the college football coaching world for sure.
So full disclosure, I thought about getting into coaching, but the hours were the reason I didn't want to do it. I wanted to be a family guy. I wanted to be able to spend time with my family, not have to move. 20 hours, I think, is probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but 18 isn't. And I think, of course, there's some days where you'll pull an all-nighter, but it's a grind. And I think if that does get dialed back, that would make it much more attractive.
I bet you there's a lot of guys who are around the facility 5:30 to 9:30.
5:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m.
What's that, 17?
Yeah, easily.
When I was in like late teens, early 20s, I was putting in 15, 16 hours a day running my college football franchise on my PlayStation. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Come on. Where's your dedication? You don't win championships by getting 6 hours of sleep. Come on, Warren. All right. Coming up on the other side, we're going to keep it with coaches, but looking ahead into the future. So in 2030, how many active FBS coaches have national championships? I don't just have a number. I even got some names and more.
Next. The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, and on Thursdays around this time of year, we love to drop everything and turn our attention to you in the big old bag of mail. This question actually was submitted before the end of the college football playoff, but I liked it so much that I figured that we should keep it. So this came from Cooper in the big old bag of mail. Guys, Cover 3 is hands down the best podcast on the scene. Never miss an episode, RIP Barton, and I've made it a family affair with my 5-year-old son, who is starting to memorize and shadow Chip's intro monologue alongside his old man when we listen in the car. Mailbag question for you. After this inaugural expanded college football playoff is over and fully digested, so he didn't know who won by the end of it, if you look ahead 5 years, set the over-under on the number of active FBS coaches with a national championship, coaching retirements and unretirements being a consideration. So it sounds like our friend Cooper has opened the door for
Jimbo to get a job.
Jimbo to get a job, or Mac Brown to be back on the sidelines, or yes, of course, maybe even if Nick Saban were to be there. So for those of you who have not kept up with the latest on the tracker, there are 3 coaches currently who have a national championship. That would be Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, and Dabo Swinney. Over under, general number. Let's start to break this down. Where would we set it?
I actually, I was scrolling on my phone most of the show trying to find what I dropped in the chat like a month ago when we got this question. So from 2015 to 2024, we had 3, and then like the previous 3 10-year periods sequentially, we had 4, 4, and 4, then 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 3, 2. So generally, although it seems low to me, like the average for like the last decade or so, and part of this is because Saban wins all the time,
right,
has been like 2.75, 2.5. So I think a good number here is 3, which basically accounts for like Ryan Day leaving, Dabo leaving, Kirby leaving, and somebody else winning their first. You know, be it Sark or Dan Lanning or who are some of the other guys we mentioned on the show. But 2030, I mean, we're talking what, 6 more college football seasons?
Yes.
I think I would go over though, because I think the playoff and the disbursement of talent. Yeah.
Do you think like where would you put the odds of Ryan Day being gone or Dabo being gone by 2030? Like I think Day is more like
80% or 90%.
No, I'm lower.
100%.
I'm lower.
Oh
no,
okay.
lower.
Okay, sorry.
I think Day.
You think they're going to coach 7 more years each? Like the odds of that are really bad, guys. Like
I think Dabo will.
Yep.
I mean, what else is Dabo going to do?
Yes.
I think we've got
I think we've got like a Frank
Lifetime.
Beamer.
Oh wait, are we saying the odds are both are gone?
No, just one of them is gone. Either. Like
one
I
of them
think
is gone.
I think there's
like
a higher
90%.
I think there's a higher chance that Ryan Day would be gone, because especially if he wins another title between now and then and the NFL interest perks up, he might finally move on. But I think Dabo's a lifer.
Don't we feel like Kirby's a lifer too? Because we haven't brought him up. Guy played there, got a great thing rolling.
The only thing with Kirby is, man, he goes hard, like 110%. I could see that burning hot and fast and being done.
And the money is like so preposterous now.
Yeah.
That it's like, what more?
But it also begs like, because then you're financially secure. You can bank $50 million and be like, I'm good forever. You don't need to keep
going.
That's
what Tom's saying, right?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, it's you might just be like, I'm tired of the grind. I'm gonna go be rich.
So
sit on a golf course and talk to my co-hosts.
Let's do the Dabo thing, because that was the one that I was really thinking about. He's 55 years old. He can do 5 more years.
Yeah.
And to Danny, you said lifer. Like I'm imagining a Frank Beamer, Bobby Bowden, Joe Paterno, like the kind of guy who does stay at one place and like an entire decades and generations of football at this university are just going to be so aligned with Dabo Swinney. Like Dabo's the easy one. Does Ryan Day leave on his own? Does Ryan Day get called to the NFL? I'll give you that as maybe a little bit more of a coin flip. But I think Kirby and Dabo are absolutely still in college football in 2030.
Dabo is interesting, though, because he did, and he's been burned by this quote. He said, if it ever turns into professional football, I'm out. And he's been able, and he's still here.
Yeah,
but if we continue down this path, and I could see him, and somebody was making a joke in here about running a church, but I could see him getting out, being like, I've made enough money. I want to impact kids and doing something kind of outside the box, whether it's broadcasting or whether it's, running a high school team and just being like a guy. That wouldn't surprise me either. So maybe I'm more with Bud, like all of a sudden. It's a long time to keep going at this grind, and they have been able to bank a lot of money.
The other thing is that, like, Clemson's recruiting is not quite as good as it once was.
Right.
So, like, Dabo could get tired of that.
Okay.
All right, well, let's turn our attention to which coaches we think
are going to be added. Yeah, because there's the obvious ones, right? Everyone's going to say Sark.
Yep.
Everyone's going to say Dan Lanning.
Mm-hmm.
But who's going to follow me with Sharon Moore?
It's not that bad of an eye. I mean, have you guys, I know they're losing a lot of these guys, but have you seen the NFL draft, mock drafts, how many first rounders they potentially could have?
I have seen them.
And the job that their defense did this past year in their offense was atrocious. If they just get marginally better on offense and they kind of continue to be the defense they've been for the past 4 years, they did beat Ohio State 4 years in a row, still haven't lost to them. So I don't think it's that crazy to think Sharon Moore should be in this conversation.
I mean, it's almost like if they stumble into being able to buy a generational talent at quarterback to go with that defense, you could ride that to a national championship. I don't know.
I'm not saying it's not possible. I wouldn't put him in the top 3 names that I would list, though.
I'm
not going Sark, Lanning, Moore.
Well, I thought there were 2 obvious ones, and then you start to like work into, unless you've got someone else who you think deserves to be on that top tier. I felt like it was too obvious, and then we could start to deal with like how much do you think Kalen DeBoer is going to be at Alabama it's still in 2030? I
mean, Marcus Freeman just came pretty close.
Marcus Freeman's another great one.
I think I would have Freeman over Sharon Moore. I would have DeBoer over Sharon Moore. I would have definitely Lanning, definitely Sark.
Would you put Brian Kelly above him?
That's the one I was just going to say. Like, do you have? I think Franklin over Moore.
Did you guys mention Heupel?
Ooh,
He's already been to a playoff. I mean, their athletic program is churning right now, like humming. They've got good NIL. Like, he's got a quarterback. He's
Did
a great
they miss their
offensive
window?
mind.
Maybe
like specifically,
With the
like they were one of the they were one of the 3 or 4 teams that was way out ahead of everybody on NIL early, and like they were like, let's spend now, ask questions later, and so it does kind of make you think, now that everybody can spend the house money a little more evenly, does that advantage dissipate slightly?
yes.
I think it does too.
I think it does. That
doesn't mean they can't win one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't miss their window in terms of like the it's just the makeup of the sport and the way it's being run. I'm not ready to I would not put Heupel ahead of Marcus Freeman.
No.
Yeah.
Where would you put Mario on this list?
He's on it because I think they've got resources, and he plays in the ACC. So you're going to have access. I mean, even though
got 2 spots
here, right? No, but you should be able to get access more so than some of these guys. Although with 4, a lot of these guys are going to get there, which is going to be half the battle. It's getting
Will they be in the Big Ten by 2030?
Well, and it's like we have to also draw a line, because the thing about trying to guess in 2030, there's not many more national championships between now and 2030. And look, I think there's a decent chance Kirby Smart wins another one before 2030. Yes. I think there's a decent chance Ryan Day wins another one before 2030. So the list can only be but so long in terms of candidates here.
Jerry mentioned it in the chat, and I'm glad he did, because I would have James Franklin on this list. How high? I wouldn't have him in those top 2 slots, but I would probably have him in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if we were having a bet as who gets this first, like if it was you can only have one and it's whoever gets it first, I still think Sark would be at the top because he's got Arch Manning, and that's going to be a huge feather in his cap. But Penn State, I mean, Drew Aller has to take that next step forward, but you kind of trust the defense is going to be really good. They're bringing Jim Knowles in. They've got both backs in. They brought in a couple receivers to kind of help Drew Aller. A lot of pressure is going to be on him, but I do think it was a significant step forward. Clearly, it didn't go as far as they want, but they were one interception away from making the championship game. So I would put James Franklin on this list and maybe towards the top if it was just who could get the next one first.
And now I'm going to be mean, and I apologize because I don't want nastiness, but doesn't Penn State have a lot of if only just one play, if only just one game? Isn't that Penn State football?
Yes.
Would have had more national championships, would have done this, that. It is a program that in the folklore of college football certainly lives a little bit of that lovable loser kind of role.
Also, and this is not to be mean, but it sounds kind of mean. Let's not forget the road Penn State had to the semis. We talked about it before the playoff even started. They've got the most favorable draw. It's not to say they stunk or didn't deserve to be there or they aren't going to be good again in the future, but they got the benefit of the draw, SMU and Boise State.
It's like when Aller threw that absurd interception, it kind of felt like Penn State stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And also, the good news for them is that the reason you have to put Franklin on this list, even if you sit there and you don't really think it's going to happen and you be like, they can't beat top 5 teams, they don't do this, they don't do that. What we talked about yesterday, the Big Ten's going to be getting 4 teams in every year. Penn State's going to be one of those 4 teams far more often than not. Yeah. So they're going to get a lot of cracks at it. So you have to include him on that list as long as he's coaching at Penn State.
And he should be coaching at Penn State for as long as he wants to. You think?
Yeah. I might have voted. No, fan bases, if he keeps getting to the playoff every year and coming up short, the patience will wear out.
I remember his name was floated out for a lot, like USC wasn't his name out there. It was kind of
LSU.
Right.
Yeah. His name's been floated a lot. I think that was just so that they could get better bathrooms, maybe a longer runway. I feel like he's always trying to get
runway. Yeah, runway is what he wants.
He's always leveraging interest to try to get a little bit of improvement. Hey, I'm no hate here.
Micah Parsons should be signing a new deal soon. Maybe he can donate some to help lengthen that runway.
Barton is Micah.
Let's throw this out there. If it didn't have to be Brian Kelly, where would you rate LSU on this? Basically, just the LSU coach for the next 6 seasons.
I don't think any differently. And I also think
really, because I think Kelly could get fired and somebody come in there and win.
Yeah. I mean, it's LSU,
right?
It's a very good job.
It is one of the very few programs where you can say in high level college football, I really believe anyone can be a head coach and win a national championship.
Would you put Napier anywhere close to this because he has 2 years lagway?
No.
I
think Florida's got so much work left to do.
I think I would, man. Eventually, there'd be a couple more guys before I got to him, but you have to have a special player to win it. I think, or you got to be a crazy loaded roster.
All right,
so we don't have any Big 12 or ACC names. Mario, I guess we floated. Nobody else, right?
No.
The Big 12, I'm pretty confident will all be dead before they win a national title, unless there's major structural changes to the sport. They just do not.
Coaches are going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, make
that
the
long
case for any team.
No, I hear that's why I brought it up.
Injustice players.
All right. Where?
Texas Tech is super excited about what they signed. I'm like, cool. Most of them were kind of bit players elsewhere. It's not. Big 12 fans already hate me now. So
I know.
I like your league, man. It's just I don't like it for the title contender. I like because it's a good, entertaining product.
Yeah, he was Bud Elliott. I don't think you're ever going to win a national championship. I'd watch your Red Zone channel, but I don't think you're ever going to win a national championship.
I don't have to think wrestling's real to enjoy it, right?
Wait, what? Wrestling's not real?
Can I ask a mailbag question?
No,
yeah, absolutely.
That may be a really dumb question, but I'm still trying to figure this out, and I think everybody is. The $20 million that's been mentioned, and it's been the number with the revenue share, that's the agreement, the House settlement. Is that a true salary cap?
No.
Or because remember when Belichick was hired, we're like, well, they're going to get the 20, and on top of that, like, what's their, the number they've committed to it, and like the schools like Ohio State, yeah, they can do 20, but they can also go above and beyond. But then I also noticed with the new CEO role and some of the governance that's been proposed is that they are going to try to monitor this and keep it to 20 million, and then the collectives and NIL would genuinely be true NIL deals, like, you're in a Dr. Pepper commercial because you're Arch Manning, not because you're Bryce Underwood and you look like a great player. We're going to pay you. It's going to be more earned.
I thought, first of all, I think it's 20 for all sports.
Right.
Yeah.
So some schools are going to say 13 for football. Some schools are going to say 18 for football. Like there's going to be some number. Do you know, Bud?
No, 18. That would be like very, very redlining, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I feel like.
Is that Clemson's number?
I'm not.
I mean, they're pretty notorious for dumping all their money into football and just
and just letting everybody else figure it out. But I mean, that's,
and like Goj in the chat. Goj had, because that's what I don't think you're ever gonna like. I don't think they're just gonna give up trying to cheat or gain an advantage. I think you would see kind of money under the table, bagmen type of stuff come back to the forefront. Or I thought collectives would just continue to add sweeteners, like add a little extra juice to it. But how do you prove like that it's not pay for play? Like, you'd say, well, yeah, we have a car dealer who loves these guys, wants to pay them to be in a car commercial, so we're going to give them $1 million. Like, how do you monitor that?
I wonder if there could be actual legal ramifications for public state schools to break these rules. If there's like employment factors going into it, it could be fraud.
Possibly. All right. So basically, everybody who takes the house money is supposed to comply with that, to where you're not getting outside money beyond fair market value. There's this clearinghouse they've established. I'm sure, somebody's getting rich off this, and they're supposed to review all deals to make sure that they're fair market value relative to like the player's marketability. I'm sure there's some schools that are going to have 6 or 7 million on top of their, like, let's call it 15. So they're sitting at like 22, and maybe on top of their 18. So they're sitting at like 24, 25. But you have to have some teeth to this, which are supposed to be like ineligible, and the school gets punished and all this other stuff. But I think there's a really good chance somebody's going to sue over this, right? Mm-hmm. College football is a fairly niche market. Okay. To Danny's point, yes, you may not have like broad national appeal, but you might have tremendous regional appeal and like really have, a high conversion rate as to whatever you're selling, right? Maybe you're not reaching that many folks with your cars, but maybe the dealer believes that you are so valuable as an up and coming star that you're likely to convert a large number of people, who see your ad into actually car buyers, right? So I strongly think somebody's going to sue over this. And I do think that there is some chance that this gets pushed into like the 26th season, right? However, all these schools are trying to front load the hell out of all these deals because the deals you're making right now aren't getting reviewed by the review committee or whatever they're calling it, the clearinghouse, whatever you want to use for it. So if you're able to front load all these big time deals now, then you kind of get them in and they'll figure out the new deals under the new structure after we've seen a year of the clearinghouse.
Do you guys know who Cody Campbell is?
No. Cody
Campbell is a former Texas Tech offensive lineman who just sold his oil and gas company for $4.3 billion. He's an interesting follow on X. He was saying that the April 7th House settlement judgment, where the judge has to approve it, he doesn't want to see it he doesn't want to see it pass because they've been a school that has really taken advantage of NIL, and he's been a big driver of it. It's a big reason why they have the number 3 recruiting class in the transfer portal. He's a big reason why Nigel Kennedy, the best pitcher in college softball, is going to Texas Tech. And so, like, that's where I think it gets really interesting, is I don't think we're out of the woods yet, or this salary cap is just going to hold status quo, and it's going to be like, oh, everybody's going to fall in line, and we're going to get this perfect parity. I think there's a lot to be uncovered still. And I think Bud, if you opt out, let's say you say we're good, we don't want the we don't want the 20 million because we got a guy worth $4 billion who will give us 40 every year. Can you do that way? Because he was pretty adamant saying we don't want this to pass. We want to have our advantage.
Like
of
we can
having
put
more
together
money.
a $23 million roster and not have to follow all these rules.
Exactly. So can you opt out? Because I know it just went out like you had to opt in. Can you opt out if you have independent, wealth where you don't want it?
I have not actually asked about an individual school opting out now. I know that there are some schools who objected to the settlement. Most of those schools are like way lower level. And they're like, hey, we should not be paying back NIL. We have never had any player who has any NIL value at all, like a D2 school or a 1AA school where literally it is just like that's not really a sports business, that Sanford's running or pick your FCS school. I guess some of your Dakotas probably actually do make some decent money on it, but for the most part, those players are not marketable, like really at all. So those schools I know have objected. I haven't seen any major school object. Like to my knowledge, Texas Tech has not objected to this.
No, I don't. I just know he's been vocal saying, I don't want this to pass. We want to have our NIL and collective and keep being able to pay the players as much as we want.
So what's to stop Cody from paying one of these like social media farms in far off lands from jacking up your social media value like crazy? Bunch of fake followers, bunch of fake views, all that kind of stuff. Oh my God, you got a podcast. Maybe it's, I don't know, somewhere in the Midwest that focuses on a college sports team. And all of a sudden it has more downloads than all the other big college sports podcasts combined, right? Like hypothetically that could happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking about it. So like what if some kid started, a podcast and get like up with a bot farm? That'd be the way to back channel us. That's pretty cheap, I think. So you could do that.
I'll DM him. I'll let him know.
And then Cody could be like, oh, look, man, his show did 150 million views last year. That seems pretty marketable to me.
In June? Wow.
Here's my mailbag question. If you had billions of dollars, would you put it towards your alma mater's football team, or would you just buy a professional sports franchise?
Depends on your mindset.
One for that? What do pro franchises go for?
For like, if I had $5 billion, how much did he sell his whatever
4.3? And
there's plenty of professional sports franchises he could buy for $4.3 billion, and you'd actually get money back.
The Cowboys or the Texans maybe wants to be in Texas. He already the field is named after him. He gave $25 million for naming rights. Or can you get any? Do you think we ever get to the point where maybe he buys Texas Tech's athletic department?
That's far.
Interesting wrinkle here that Nate brought up in the tailgate. I'm glad you brought up this story. I cannot confirm this, but he sold it to an even wealthier SMU booster.
That's if it's serious or not, I don't know, but that's pretty good.
How long can the NIL era go before Texas schools are the only ones with money left?
It's all going to be Texas.
College football playoff in 2032. It's Texas, Texas Tech, SMU, and congrats, Texas A&M. You made it.
Finally. At 8-4. I don't know how it happened.
I don't know how it happened. It's funny. That was actually another question from the big old bag of mail. Sweet Lou dropped a 5-star review and said, what do you think causes Texas A&M to consistently be a 4-loss team, regardless of good recruiting classes and good transfers that we pay for? Why can we not ever get over the hump? And look, I understand if you've been listening to us for years, RIP Barton, but also you understand that every single offseason, a Texas A&M fan comes to us and at some point is going to say, why? And so we don't need to like unpack it with a whole episode here, but what is the latest why? Why can Texas A&M not match resources to results?
It hasn't been fully legal to pay guys like this way for all that long. I don't think their under the table booster structure was quite as organized as some places were that Nick Saban had gone or was coaching at, right? So LSU and Alabama seemed to really kind of get their act together after he started coaching there. So maybe they had money, but they didn't funnel it in the right ways, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they had a great quarterback that paired up necessarily with some of their better rosters at times. They also might have been a little gun shy to spend at times. Didn't they get popped in the old Southwest Conference? Or the old, trying to think what they were in. Were they Big 8 or Southwest?
Southwest.
Southwest.
I mean, part of it, I think, too, is even when whether it was legal or illegal to spend money, they were always in a league where other people were doing the same thing, and they weren't the best team doing it. Like in the SWC, you still had Texas to deal with. Now that in the Big 12, you still had Texas and Oklahoma to deal with. Now you're in the SEC. You've got Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, all of these other schools to deal with. Like, you have never been the big dog on your block.
Did Iowa wrestling pay?
Apparently. Now that's lighting money on fire, because you are not going to get a dime out of that. Nobody's watching wrestling. Like,
you can make a great movie about it one day.
Yeah.
Coming up on the other side, more of your questions and our answers. Next.
I feel home when I see the faces that remember my own. When I'm with my friends, I feel home.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. I think Boney's watching, or was earlier. He hit me with a little USA. Hi, Boney.
Love it.
Glad to see you hanging out. Lane, almost 3 hours before we got started, jumped in the tailgate and said, just found out my wife is pregnant. Any dad advice from the Cover 3 pod?
Congratulations, Lane.
Yeah,
congratulations.
All the cliches are true. Like, enjoy every moment, like every stage, like cherish the time. As the parent of the oldest kids on here, it flies by. Every stage is different. Enjoy them all.
Like sports wise, I would just say take it easy. Like, nobody's going pro at 5 or 10. But
boy, don't talk to parents that I've coached alongside and seen them at events.
Yeah, we get the emails from psycho dads. I got the number one 12-year-old quarterback. I'm like, bro, I'd rather just like see a picture of you and the wife, and like, just any grandparents, or like you win the lottery of puberty or you don't, right? Like, you really can't train your way into the pros. You might be able to train your way into a scholarship, but I don't think pros, I think, is seriously DNA plus hard work. Either you win the puberty lottery or you don't. So it's like it should be fun.
Would be the
also, if you have a boy, those little peepee
or the genetic lottery. Is it the puberty?
Sure.
I've never heard.
Puberty lottery is like when you
really can't tell
your growth
start
spurt.
growing.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a boy, those little PPTPs that they make with, like, where you're changing them, just use a wet wipe. It's weighted. It's a little heavier. They can't kick it off quite as well. I don't know.
Get better reflexes.
I have all girls. So I never got to experience the PPTP.
There will be moments, especially in the first couple months, in the first couple years, where it feels like you are going absolutely insane. And don't worry, because you're going to black all that out. Nobody remembers those hard times or what it felt like. You're like, everything was wonderful according to the way your memory is. You are going to memory hole all of the worst times. So when things are really tough, don't worry, you won't remember it later on.
I would also say what's good for the happy wife, happy life. Try to, because it does get crazy, it does get hectic. Try to keep some date nights available for just you and your wife. Get a babysitter, take your wife out, because you can easily get slammed, watching those kids, and you forget that.
You just put them in a crate for a couple hours.
That's right. Yeah, you have a baby at the house now, Tom.
Yes. Mm-hmm,
in addition to the family.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, listen, Murph's ready for baseball season.
Mm-hmm.
Is a baseball dog now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So earlier in the week, we know that the Big Ten and SEC athletic directors were gathering together in New Orleans to discuss the future of college football, among which might include a scheduling agreement. So one of our friends, LSU versus FAR, jumped in the tailgate and said, "Hey, tailgate, are there any teams out there that you would like to see play more with the Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement? I know Nebraska is interested in more games against Missouri and Oklahoma, and I'd imagine Illinois, Missouri would be another one as well. So what do we think are some Big Ten SEC matchups that would be a lot of fun?"
Illinois already has games scheduled in the future against Missouri, so I'm guessing this would go into that. But I don't know. Do they want to do it to where it would be like permanent opponents, or would they want to have like a rotation?
I thought they would take it the same way that they did some of these basketball tournaments, where it's good on good based on last year's standings.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting one week 1.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State, Texas.
Like that would be one of my top ones. I didn't know either if they were going for like regional, try to get rivalries going. I do like the best on best idea. I wish we had some more of the, the Big Ten SEC Challenge, the ACC I wish we had that in football. It's much harder, but I would love to see more of something like that.
How about like Wisconsin Ole Miss? That'd be cool. Like they both tailgate their ass off. Like that would be a good one. Illinois, South Carolina. I'd like to see more of the.
Yeah, let's keep the Illinois
rivalry. No, I think the Illini would like a challenge.
Oh.
Who are you giving LSU?
Penn State.
Yeah.
Clemson's going to be fun. I know the ACC isn't involved in this scheduling deal, but I'd like to see the ACC not completely left out of these scheduling conversations, even though it feels like they're going to be. We have Florida State, Bama next year, Clemson, LSU.
LSU, yeah. Clemson.
We want Bama, Oregon, right?
I don't want to see Ole Miss Wake again.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you want to see DeBoer Lanning? Yeah,
DeBoer Lanning.
I was even thinking about. Sure. I was thinking about Lanning Kirby, because I guess there is going to be a game with high stakes where it's Oregon against Georgia, and we're going to go back to that absolute ass kicking that was the very first game of Dan Lanning's career, and it's going to be like, can he fully reverse it? I know that. Danny, I felt like you and I were trying to like speak that into existence in our first college football playoff predictions. Remember, we're like,
yes.
It'll be Oregon against Georgia, the master and the apprentice showing down, and obviously looking for storylines that's going to be there. But I would want an Oregon Georgia for sure. All right, let's keep it rocking and rolling. Jonathan, what's y'all's favorite one that got away recruit, both for the school that you attended and for a school in general, as in a player that almost committed but flipped last minute?
It's easy, right? Bud for Florida State.
Florida State, yeah. The Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah. Like what could have been the prime there. I mean, even if you go back a year ago when things were good, what a difference he would have made. And I was there at the week before signing day. And I remember asking Norvell, like, hey, how do you feel about your class? And he's like, good. And it was like no worries whatsoever. That was such a blind spot that they didn't see that coming. It was pretty crazy.
Hadn't he also helped recruit?
Yeah, for 3 years. Yes, for 3 years he was all in on the Noles.
I would say Julio Jones. Just because I feel like that's a story I can share. So Jimbo was at a booster event with a guy who my buddy knows is a pretty good sized booster. What do you think our chances are with Julio Jones? And I think this was when he was still the coach in waiting, but he was pretty clearly running the recruiting by that point. He got LaMarcus Joyner, he got a bunch of the Nigel Bradham, a lot of those guys. And it was basically something to the gist of hey, I worked for Nick. We're not ready to play that game here in Tallahassee because he just got there. It's I don't think you guys quite understand how this works. And then the governor called Julio Jones, if you guys recall.
Really?
Yeah. Google Julio Jones governor recruiting. I'm sure the stories are still up.
Grant in the tailgate said that Oklahoma told Cam Newton, we're good. We've got Landry Jones. Now, I don't know if Oklahoma was ready to play the game that was required for Cam Newton or when that was, but that's another story for another time. Tom, do you have any?
No.
I was thinking
there's no 5 stars that are committing to Illinois and then flipping to a powerhouse at the last minute. I mean, there's been 5 stars who put Illinois in their top 5 alongside Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Michigan, and then they would just be giving the homeschool some love, but no. Now in the future, maybe.
Randy Moss is both for FSU and the Irish.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Could have been.
Do you think? Yeah, Burrow was a good one in there. I didn't know Burrow was he Husker. Oh, his dad. Was he in talks with Nebraska?
I think Nebraska didn't offer him. I think that's the story.
Was that Frost? No. Because he was still at UCF then, right?
Yeah, no, I think that was Riley.
There was a running joke for a while, and I'm trying to recall. It was like, oh, yeah, this coach wanted this great quarterback to play safety. I'm trying to think who it was. Remember this?
Manziel.
Like, it was Manziel. It was RG3. That was Mac Brown.
Mac Brown. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, most of the North Carolina football recruiting experience is like, oh, there's a really good player in the state. Maybe we can get him. And then you see that he's visiting SEC schools, and you're like, okay, never mind. You know, like Todd Gurley from Tarboro, right? You know, you're like, oh, yes. And it's like, he's at Georgia. Oh, no. You know, like that's it doesn't lead to a lot of like signing day heartbreak. Generally for North Carolina football fans.
Leads to like a lot of early January heartbreak
right.
of the year before.
Yeah, exactly. It leads to a lot of year and a half out sort of disappointment most of the time.
We can knock out a lot of these for the Southeast with just anybody who was trying to recruit a player, unless your name was Nick Saban from Louisiana or Mississippi. It's just like, yeah, cool. They'll come visit once or twice, but they're not actually leaving, bro.
Yeah, they came to come with their friends or to see guys that they used to play high school ball with, and just
you're
just practicing recruiting.
Right.
If we want to go basketball, I would say Eric Gordon and Cliff Alexander. Cliff Alexander did the hat toss. He put the Illinois hat on, and then he took it off and threw it away, and then put on the Kansas hat. That was a painful one.
Brandon Ingram going to Duke stung North Carolina fans because he was from Kinston. Kinston is the home of Jerry Stackhouse and has long been sort of a North Carolina stronghold. And so when Ingram went to Duke, that one stung a lot of people for sure.
Chip wasn't getting paid enough at the time to keep it.
I wasn't getting paid enough to be able to get it locked down. All right, let's do. Here we go. Which current Group of 5 program or coach is most likely to make the deepest playoff run? Bonus, how far would that run be? I think a G5 team could make the semifinals of a 14-team playoff. I think that's where I would stop. Win 2 games.
Especially if they get, well.
You would be the good draw. There's no like good draw when you are the reason for the good draw.
I'd probably say semis too.
But what programs?
That's like year to year, it's going to change.
Right.
I don't think so.
I do, because I think most of the top G5 coaches will end up at P4 programs.
Okay, that's fair.
So it's what Memphis or USF because of the way they spend,
or Tulane
in that league. Yeah, I think Tulane has some money.
And USF's a good call. I was thinking Memphis, Tulane, Boise was sort of just like right off the rip. Try to think about institutional programs that could be able to string it together.
Nobody really in the Sun Belt. Nobody in the MAC. Probably those 4.
UNLV had some good wins last year.
UNLV.
It's not like there's a history of success there, though.
But I don't know. There's a history of success with Dan Mullen taking like 2 sticks and a piece of chewing gum and coming up with a, like an explosive device.
I mean, look, it's not likely at all, but I think they have to be on the list, certainly.
UTSA?
Maybe.
I want to see without Howard.
Yeah, it's too hard to predict. It's like there is no G5 powerhouse anymore.
Because they all got
hoovered up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Boise State's the only kind of real G5 powerhouse that remains, but I don't know.
Yeah. It'll be it'll be very, very interesting to be able to continue to track as sort of the landscape changes. But yeah, I'll say semifinals is the deepest. And then we've got a list of maybe about 5 that probably could win, could not only make the playoff, because look, anybody could make the playoff. You get hot, you beat everybody in your conference, you get like 1 power conference win. Like and it doesn't even need to be a a crazy power conference win. When Cincinnati made it to the college football playoff, they beat a Notre Dame team they didn't beat Notre Dame. They beat Indiana, right?
But another thing to consider, like that Cincinnati team, let's put them in this current year. Like that was a team that before the season we were hyping as a possible playoff team. They had 8 players from that team get drafted immediately after. How many of those kids are still at Cincinnati in the transfer portal era? Or how many are being bought by SEC and Big Ten schools after they make a name for themselves?
Like after the first, like after the first year when they pushed Georgia to the brink, in the New Year's Six bowl game, then the very next year they'll come back and they would have all gotten hoovered up.
Like Ashton Genty's very much the exception to the rule where he had offers to leave and he chose to stay at Boise State. So like you need that kind of player to make these kind of runs in the playoff era. It's just, I don't know how many of those players are going to stick with their G5 school when the big money comes calling.
Yep.
You almost certainly need somebody like you're going to have like a first time starter at quarterback who just balls out and people did not see it coming.
Yep. I'd agree with that.
Oh, does Washington State count?
Yes.
Because I would have them above, not everybody, but close.
The way the Pac-12 is going to be constructed in the future is not a power conference.
Yeah, and I don't know what Washington State's going to be in the new look era where they're not going to be getting, I don't know.
Yep. It will be very
I would have them over UNLV.
Yes.
It'll be very interesting to track. Next week, there's something that happens around this time of year. All those draftniks, they think they're so smart. Well, the NFL Combine is going to be coming up at the end of next week, and we have the preeminent voices when it comes to college football. So, in addition to everything else, as we continue to take you through the offseason and going into what is going to be a robust spring practice, we will have our eyes on the NFL draft. That will start next week. Come and join us Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow me at Chip _Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.